Hi, I'm JB from Huffy, and today I'm going to be helping you build your 24-inch Scout mountain bike. To build this bike, you may need a screwdriver, a 15mm and 10mm wrench, Allen wrenches size 6mm and 5mm, a 3/8 or 1/4 inch ratchet with a 10mm or a 15mm socket, side cutters, or an adjustable wrench. To start, we've put the bike on a table and taken all of the parts out of the box. We have a left and right pedal, a derailleur guard, our seat and seat post, and our front tire is on the other side of our table over here. Just in case you are missing any parts, you can reach out to our customer service. You can go to huffybikes.com/contact or huffybikes.com/parts. You can also call our 1-800 number at 1-800-872-2453. All right, to start, we're going to start at the back of the bike. I'm going to use a Phillips head screwdriver and go ahead and remove the hardware for the derailleur guard. If any of the hardware is missing, check the bottom of your box. It may have fallen out. If it's not there, just give us a call and we'll send some out to you. Just going to get this hardware hand started. That way I don't accidentally strip out anything. And you'll see me do that throughout the rest of this video for the rest of the things that we are tightening onto the bike. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use my Phillips to tighten and just snugging up everything, just good and wrist tight. I don't need it to be overly tight. Don't want to strip out anything. If you need to, you can also use a 10mm on that hardware as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is move to the pedals. You should have two pedals in the box, one marked left and one marked right. There are stickers on the pedals. In case the stickers are missing on the pedals, the ends of the pedals are also marked on the metal part with an L or an R to signify left or right. And in case you can't tell from those where they're not marked, left-hand pedals always have marks across the metal. They look like little hash marks or gash marks, and that helps signify that that is the left-hand pedal. So which side is the left and which side is the right? The right side of the bike is the rider's right, as they would be sitting on the bike. So that means the side with the chain wheel, and the chain is the right side. The right side pedal does have an arrow on the sticker, which indicates which way you need to turn that pedal to tighten. In this case, it is normal as righty-tighty. So I'm going to go ahead and get this hand started. Tighten it as much as I can by hand, which should be almost all the way. There we go. And now I'm going to look at the left-hand pedal and check its sticker. It is showing the opposite rotation, so the left-hand pedal is lefty-tighty. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on and make sure that I'm spinning it the correct direction so that I tighten it. And this goes on by hand very easily as well, just like the right side. And once I have those as tight as I can get them by hand, I will finish tightening them with a 15mm wrench. And you want to make sure that you get these tight so that they do not come off while you're riding. And you also want to periodically check your pedals from time to time to make sure that they have stayed tight and haven't come loose when you're riding. Okay, our left and right pedals are on and tight. So the next thing I'm going to do is move to the front of the bike. So the bike ships with the fork in a backwards position to help package it in the box. I'm just going to turn this one around so that it is in the correct orientation. And then I'm going to use a 5mm hex or Allen wrench to loosen and remove the hardware on the top cap for your headset. Take the metal black cap and hardware off of the cardboard keeper. Set it off to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and align our handlebar. So take a moment and make sure that none of your cables are tangled, that they are on the right side of the bike that they should be. Yeah, it looks like we're pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and slide our handlebar stem over our head tube, and then take that black cap and hardware and tighten it into place. Hand tighten as much as possible. I'm wiggling it around a little bit as I tighten as well, so I make sure that I catch the threads that I mean to. It's also something that you don't want to strip out. All right, so I'm just kind of snugging that down. Okay. So as far as handlebar orientation to the front fork, what you want to do is you want to look straight down and adjust the forks and the handlebars so that they're in the forward orientation. So I like to just kind of see past the handlebar and make sure that I see the same aspect of the fork on each side, and then I know it's pretty much aligned to go straight. I give my top cap a final little tighten. You definitely don't want to over tighten it, you just want to get it good and snug, and then you want to tighten the two other hardwares that are on the side here. They're also 5mm. You want to tighten each one little by little. Going back and forth to each one. And then as they get more snug, taking care not to strip anything or way over tighten. All right, so we're pretty tight there. You want to make sure that these are tight before you go riding. That way you don't get any slippage of your handlebars. So once you have your handlebars where you want them in a good orientation and you have them centered, you're going to go ahead and tighten the front of the stem again. You want to tighten each piece of hardware individually, little by little, going back and forth so that you create an equal gap at the top and at the bottom. If your gap is completely closed at the top and very wide at the bottom, that's an issue, and it can cause your handlebars to move, although this is all the way tightened. Same with the other way. If the bottom is all the way tightened and the top has a big gap, but it's tight here, you still will get movement, and that's not safe. So you want to make sure that the gap is equal on the top and bottom. So orientate your handlebars where you want them, get them centered, and then tighten each side little by little to create the proper gap. I want to make sure this hardware is very good and snug. That is important for safe operation. Next thing I'm going to do is move my reflector into the front, angling it down just a little bit because when the front tire is on, it'll lift the whole front end of the bike up. You want to make sure that the reflector faces forward towards oncoming traffic or anything else that's going to be emitting light so that they can see you as you're riding. All right, and we're all tight there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our seat post and saddle to our bike. So we're going to go ahead and open the lever here on our seat tube, and I'm going to tighten the thumb nut on the opposite side here as much as I can by hand with the lever open. Pull it closed I'm going to check here to make sure that the gap on the tube does get smaller, and it does. So hopefully that's enough to keep our seat post in place. If you need to adjust your seat at all, there are 2 nuts below your seat. You can tighten or loosen them to move your saddle forward or back, or tilt it up or down. You just want to make sure that you have equal amounts of studs showing on both sides. So this one is in a tight position and has an equal amount on both sides there. You don't need to hold one side as you tighten or loosen the other. Just make sure that when you do tighten them that they are equal again. I'm going to go ahead and add this on here. Pretty good snug fit there. I'm going to loosen this up just in case. All right. So our tube does have minimum marks on here, dashes that go across the tube. You need to make sure that the seat tube is, the seat post is in the seat tube at least that far for safe operation. So we're going to make sure that that's down there. And we're going to shoot for right about there, which is a good demonstration height. I'm going to tighten this with my finger again just to get it back to where I think it's good. And then I'm going to actuate the lever by closing it. All right, and we're good. Now we're going to go ahead and put our front tire and wheel on. All right, so I have our front tire and wheel. This also has our disc rotor on here as well. I'm going to loosen up the 15mm hardware so that it's almost off. And then I'm going to pull the dropout washers out to the outside as well so that they are touching the nuts. And then I'm going to add the wheel and tire to the bike. The rotor needs to align with the caliper on the fork. And in addition to lining up the fork around the axle, keeping the washers and nuts on the outside, you need to line the caliper and the disc as well. So take an extra little bit of care to do that. So lifting up and sliding in. Just going to look here and make sure that I have good distance. All right, and we're good there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my dropout washers so that the hook is in the hole in the fork. I'm going to just run this down by hand. And do the same thing on the other side. And run this one down by hand. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put my kickstand down so that I can work on the bike. I'm going to put my owner's manual on the table here so I don't scratch it up. All right. And I'm going to grab a 15mm. You can use a open-end wrench. I'm going to use a ratchet and socket here. I'm just going to lightly snug up each side just a little bit. And then I'm going to check to make sure that my wheel and tire are centered. And so I usually use my hands here. If I can put my whole hand through on this side, but I can't put my hand through on this side, that means that I need to adjust that before I continue to tighten. So I'll loosen things up here. And check again. So yeah, I have some movement there so I can make a better adjustment. So keeping everything lined up, I'm going to tighten each side just little by little. Last check here. Looks like everything's still good. Make sure that my axle nuts are good and snug and my dropout washers are still in the holes in the fork. So we're all set there. So we're going to go ahead and adjust our front brake at this time. Just going to check it to make sure that it does need some adjustment. And sure enough, yep, definitely hear some rubbing of the rotor and caliper there. So we're going to go ahead and make some adjustments. I have a 2mm Allen, and I'm going to loosen this set screw on our caliper here. Make sure you guys can see that. Just going to loosen that up. It's almost completely out. There's 2 or 3 threads showing there. So it's no longer holding this backing plate in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and move my backing plate a little bit. Make sure that it's okay. So you may run into a situation where you just need to back up your backing plate just a little bit to give you a clear gap. So let's try that, see what happens. I don't think it's going to work in this situation, but every once in a while it works. So I've backed it up to where the brake pad is still showing a little bit, and it gives us a little bit of space. But yeah, we're still getting some contact there. So you noticed how it was making some noise and stopped making noise. More than likely, we're going to have to adjust our adjustment screws at the top and the bottom of the caliper to kind of solve that issue. So let's go ahead and take our 5mm hex wrench and loosen those up. And it may be as simple as moving it over just a little bit, tightening it down again, creating some gap space. This is a little bit of a tedious process. The gap is very tight. So I'm holding the caliper in place and I'm looking directly down on the rotor and caliper, and I'm creating space between the brake pad and the rotor as I look down. I'm trying to create a gap on both sides of the rotor so that I don't get noise when the wheel is rotating. So I've created a pretty good gap there, and I should be good. I don't need to move this anymore. It's okay where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and set that set screw back in there. Just snugging it up. It doesn't have to be crazy tight or anything. And we're going to go ahead and spin it. And so we're still getting just a little bit of noise. It looks like our rotor is off just a little bit. So I'm just going to lift this up and rotate it around to where I find, yeah. So I want to get it to where it's rubbing the most. So right about there. And I'm going to adjust this top and bottom screw one more time to try to create a gap again. Notice I didn't loosen the set screw, I didn't adjust the backing plate, just trying to use what I have already. If you feel like you're not having good luck with this, if it's something that might be a little bit more difficult than you're willing to tackle, a bike shop is definitely able to fine-tune these and adjust them for you. But it looks like we're good to go there. All right, so we're going to check the back brake as well. Similar circumstance, similar procedure. I'm just going to go ahead and lift the rear tire up. I'm going to start at the back and just spin it forward. You can hear some brake contact there, so we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and rotate it until we see a good amount of that contact. And we're going to try adjusting just the hardware first with our 5mm. So I'm going to loosen up my adjustment hardware. A couple spins on each. All right, I'm going to try to create some gap here. As a reminder, you want to try not to touch your rotor as much as possible. The edges are a little sharp, but the oil from your fingers and the grease from the rest of the bike can cause the brakes to not work as well. So definitely try not to touch your rotor as much as possible. Be careful around it. The edges are a little sharp. Just keep that in mind as you're working around it. So here's a little bit more patience and a little bit more finesse, creating a gap on both sides. I'm going to actuate my brake to check and make sure that it's good. Now it looks like my backing plate is back just a little bit too far, so I'm going to have to turn it in just a little bit. All right, let's see how it turned out this time. All right, so the only thing we hear is our freewheel. So we're good there. Now let's go ahead and check the brake. All right. Looks like it's working all right for us. We're not getting any rotor or caliper noise. All right, so our brakes are adjusted on our Huffy Scout. If the brakes are really difficult for you to adjust or you can't get it just right, it is a good idea to stop in at a bike shop, have them adjust them for you. They have the proper tools and know how to do it. Same with your gearing. If you have any issues with chain skip or anything like that, please stop into a bike shop and have them properly adjust it for you. The last thing that we need to do before we get ready to go ride is make sure that our tire pressure is up to where it needs to be. The tire pressure on the 24-inch Scout can be around 40 psi up to 65 psi. Those measurements are on the side of the tire, so you can look at those and adjust as necessary to whatever's comfortable for you. So now all you have left to do is grab a helmet and get ready to ride your Scout. Remember to always wear a helmet when you're riding your bike and obey local laws and regulations. So get out there and have some fun.